Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our first town hall with our Discover Your Next Move initiative. And this town hall is all about the role of the IDC sales rep during COVID and beyond. And we are so excited to have all of you with us. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules. This session, just a few administrative things, will be recorded, as you all well know, and it will be posted on the Discover Your Next Move site. So you can see it there later and listen to any portions that you might have missed. As well, throughout the town hall, this is supposed to be a really interactive time with your peers. So if you have questions at any time or wanted to chime in with any suggestions or questions, please feel free to put that in the chat box as we go. And all of our panelists today will have their contact information up at the end on the end slide, and have all been gracious enough to offer up the opportunity for you to connect with them if you had any questions and to dive a little bit deeper on anything they might have shared with you today. So we are absolutely thrilled to have all these panelists with us. These are your peers, both sort of newer in the industry and who have been here for quite some time. And each one of them brings a pretty fantastic spread of experience. And so we've hand selected them for you, and they've been so gracious to want to share with you and help you to be as effective as you can possibly be in this wild environment that we all find ourselves, and potentially grab some ideas that might help you propel you towards a fantastic future. As well today, our moderator is Marissa Pensa. And for those of you that don't know Marissa, she's been working with dealers across the IDC for quite some time, both inside and in hybrid selling, and as well as helping outside sales reps leverage kind of the phone and video aspects. And for a little bit of perspective, typically Marissa will, and her company and her team will train about 200 reps in a year. And in 2020, with all the changes that we've all experienced, that number shot up to 4,000 reps that she's trained, and her team is trained across the 6 continents. So that's pretty incredible. And those reps included some really forward-thinking businesses like Kimberly-Clark, Shaw Industries, Airgas Field Team, and Ascendant. There's definitely an appetite for learning to do things differently and what we can do differently, kind of like never before. And so that's what we've planned for you today. And we're really excited to be able to share this with you. So I'm going to pass now the controls over to Marissa, and we can start chatting together.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for logging on today, and we are excited to share some ideas with you. This is about you and about you as a member and what would be helpful to you. Now, naturally, we've prepared questions in advance and what our answers would be, but we also want to pause and make sure that if there's questions over chat, that we're being aware of those too. So I'm just going to ask something really quick for all, and I see about 145 or so on the line. So we have a mix of all different kinds of dealers and those that are joining us. Quick question for everyone, and this is beneficial for our panelists as well as they're answering. So as you thought about registering for this and you evaluated what you've done in the future of sales for your sales organization, what is one thing that would be most helpful for you to be able to learn, hear about today? Kind of like, why'd you sign up? Why'd you register? So if you could pick just one thing, send it back via chat. Whenever you send it back, if you would send back to all panelists and attendees, that way we all get to see. But what's something that just you're curious about from the panelists that were selected? So if we could send those back via chat, that will be very helpful. And we'll build on those and be able to refer back to it as we go. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to start out with some successes around marketing, what's changed, just what have we done in our businesses to be able to market differently, because this came flying at us, and so there's a different answer of what you did back in May versus what you're doing now to be able to market your business differently. Patty comes to us from more of a sales representative perspective, and you've had some really unique perspective on, and I think it was a member organization that you've worked with that you really, really honed in. So love to hear your perspective from a sales rep perspective, what you've done to market.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. Good morning. Basically, what I have done is I've been in sales for quite a while, but the biggest challenge I really had is going in from a outside sales rep to an inside sales rep. And when you walk into a building, you can see people's body language, you can see their eye contact, you can see the Staples boxes on the floor, you can see the W. Mason, catalog. So how you went from an outside salesperson to an inside salesperson. So, you lost your eyes. So you had to go, just to your ears. And so you really had to learn how to talk on the phone and transition to learn more about people, and everybody going home, and I went home too. So now what I did is I partnered with a construction company. I looked at companies that were actually going to be open. In the construction world, there's tons of construction companies that are open. And I worked with this organization that has 3,500 members in the state of Ohio. And what we did together is they have a marketing plan, and they send out blast emails to all of their members. And it really helps a lot in getting contacts, but really looking at different categories. We all have done with it PPE, or it's getting getting smaller, is I have learned that plotter paper is very, very important in the construction world. So, all these years that I've been in this market, I never thought we'd be a stocking dealer for plotter paper. That's how big it is out there. So that's a different avenue to go after the plotter paper, then pull in for their janitorial and their office supplies. But we also did is 10-minute talks. These have been very, very beneficial. 10-minute talks is that you invite prospects to a 10-minute conversation, and they sign up, and then you have a date and a time, just like we did today. And you actually have 10 minutes to tell them your story, to what value do you have to bring those clients over, the benefits they have to come over, the price, the savings that we do, just the customer service. And it does take practice. I timed myself, I practice on a video, because you get 10 minutes and you need to value that time when you tell somebody I'm just offering that. But one thing is nice is people sign up, not everybody attend, okay? So one thing you did get is you got their email addresses, your contact information, the name of the business. Now you can make that phone call and say, hey Joe, you signed up for this webinar, you weren't available. I'd like to spend some time one-on-one with you to tell you the benefit that we can do. It's been very, very helpful. Usually the thing that I learned when people sign up for these, they want to change. They signed up for a reason. You usually get decision makers that sign up for these calls.
Yeah, and you said 3,500 members or something like that. And I think your result, Patty, has been, I think you said 39 new accounts, which whether that number is big or not, just the fact that you've tracked it and and you've been able to. I just
started doing the calls just recently too. We've done a couple calls. I'm on my third one coming up in a week. So we've gotten 39 accounts out of these calls. And it's been tremendous because you're getting decision makers. And and you can get 12, 15 people on at a time. And the thing is, on the follow-up, you have to have literature ready for the follow-up, because they're expecting something. And in my email, I would give them, how do I get an account? Give them instructions and how I can open an account for you. Basically telling them when to open an account for you, not asking them, but sort of saying, this is how we can get started. And give them the information and get the information back, and then send them a welcome email.
Yeah. So let's build on this, because I'd like for you to come back to, in just a few minutes, I'd like for you to come back to video, because you referred to video and even sending video emails, which sounds like you've got you've kind of gotten a pulse of how doing that. And I want to be able to build on that. Something interesting about the 10 minutes is, and I've seen this with in my own business, as well as those that we've worked with over the past year, there is a greater respect for time virtually. There just is. I mean, the hour-long meeting we used to be able to have in person is now you got 20 minutes, you got 30 minutes. And so we have to be better prepared, and you got to do more in less time and get to it in a virtual, and it has been a culture shock for a lot. So that's great that you've been able to get down your messaging into 10 minutes. How do I make this an impactful and helpful tips? So Patty, I want to come back to you with that and expand more on it. But you had mentioned PPE, obviously for everybody on the line, we know the rise of that last year. Myers, I'd like for you to hone in on supply chain, if you would, and really partnering with the right manufacturers. How did you go about looking for that? And especially those that were being proactive in being helpful to their end users. Could you weigh in on that for us?
Sure, that was probably, if anything, that was probably one of our biggest changes in all of the COVID stuff, was kind of an increased focus on who our partners are, our sourcing. I think, especially in the IDC, and just traditionally, you bought stuff and it either came through one of the vendors at ISG or it came through your wholesale partner, and purchasing was not insignificant or inconsequential by any stretch, but it was easy. It just happened. And it was something we ran our low stock reports and brought and replenish our inventory as necessary. But there wasn't this, who am I partnered with and what are they capable of doing when crap hits the fan, let's say. And so I think we saw over the last 12 months, some of our supply chain partners really come to the table and support the IDC. And we saw others that we thought were partners or tell us that they're partners really didn't. And I would prefer not to get into who that was or wasn't, but we had manufacturers go direct and go around us. We had some, especially in the janitorial world, reallocate, as they should have, directly to hospitals or directly to federal government for some of these categories, but that didn't help us who needed to sell to a local bank or a local school district. And so our largest shift in this has been bringing our sales team into purchasing conversations, discussing who our partners are, and then taking that messaging to the field. And I think ISG's done an excellent job of helping pair dealers with the right partners, and that's just been that's been tremendous. That's been everything in this. Having the right stuff at the right time is the difference in companies who made it and are no longer with us.
No, fantastic. And Bill, I know that you also have, just to piggyback on what Myers was saying, you've had really did some direct marketing toward the out of stock report, in stock report, sending that directly to customers. Tell us a little bit about that, just to weigh in as well, how you've managed that with A to Z.
It's called an on hand report. So we basically populate all the products that we have in our warehouse, and it's updated every single morning, and that goes out to every rep, and every one of those reps gets to send it to their customers. And what that allows us to do is help manage our inventory a lot better.
Excellent. Well, and communicate to your customers what you have available.
Yeah, so they can get what they need.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'd ask all panelists just to be looking through our chat, because even as you're answering a question, build in, if you see a question that someone else has asked in our virtual room here that you could weigh in on, go ahead, take it and just say, hey, I see a question here over chat that I've got some perspective on. And that way we may not get to everything we see in chat, but those are all really, really good stuff. So let's step over to really talking about how the sales team has changed, and whether that be, and that's a broad question, but in terms of changes in number of reps, there's just been a lot of change to the sales organization as a whole. Chip, let me pull you in on this, of just major changes to I know inside sales has been a big focus for you. So can you expand on that a bit?
Well, we found out pretty quickly that our outside salespeople were not that good on the telephone. So therefore they struggled with making telephone calls. So they tried to get into locations that would let them in to talk to them, especially with the beginning of the year, this last couple months with the with the new catalogs, they wanted to deliver them. So they had to call people to get entrance to their buildings. And so we've decided here that we needed to put in inside sales team. So we've been hiring people just to do inside sales. And so far, getting a lot of traction in that, and think we're going to go forward with that. I feel today you're going to have someone, you have to have someone who's going to be like a dual role, go out and visit customers as well as be able to cold call when you're locked out of them.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you won't be successful, I think, in the future.
Just to do a quick case in point for the power of the phone, everybody humor me for a second. Let's do this. So anyone that receives sales calls, which is a lot of people on the phone, anyone that receives sales calls, add up for me, if you will, and just send it via chat. How many total phone sales calls, somebody trying to sell you, how many phone calls have you received this week so far? So it's Thursday and third week of January. How many total phone sales calls have you received? Let's just get 15, 2, interesting. Okay. How many total sales calls? So this is for the full week. So if we have 4, Mindy, that's about 1 a day that you've gotten, 10. Interesting. So just to play out on what Chip just said, the average person gets about 121 emails a day. As we can see just from our chat, the phone calls per week is way lower. And I mean, even if it was 15 a week, that's only 3 or so a day. So the reality is so many people are defaulting to email. It's almost like my default mechanism is to email first as opposed to call first. So I'm telling you, you want to be different, pick up the phone, encourage your sales organization to pick up the phone, because I'm seeing a lot, and we're going to talk about video and using video messaging and how that can be very powerful. I've seen it personally. I've seen it with my clients in the past year. But my encouragement to you is that first touch point be via phone and the power of the phone. Bill, let me direct back to you, because you guys have had a lot of success with Inside and with your model of Inside. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, we really pushed our outside reps to be more hybrid reps, like Chip was saying. And we quickly realized that, inside sales was really the future for us, especially around the Nashville area. So we had a gentleman that that was in customer service. We moved over to inside sales. We built out 4 more people additionally on top of that. And then it's been the fastest growing part of our company, to be honest. I mean, they're making call after call after call, and it's focused around PPE, and it's also focused around, shopping locally. So I don't think there's ever been a better time during this pandemic to support local businesses. And, you're getting that on a national platform as well. So you're hearing it across the board. And so when you have inside sales reps that are picking up the phone and dialing one after the other, they're sharing that message. And we've been able to acquire a lot of new business, actually 816 new accounts this year alone. Well, actually in 2020. We needed to pivot. Our outside sales team, they, as much as you wanted to be proactive when the pandemic hit, you could not be reactive because stock was flying off the shelf. We're trying to get our loyal customers the products they need, and it was very difficult. And it goes back to supply chain management. But from a rep perspective, our outside reps were just being reactive to the situation they were in. And so then we had to start talking about being proactive and getting new business and, recovering some of those businesses that shut down during the pandemic, and they're just starting to reopen. So the year as a whole in itself, we saw everything shift more towards inside sales. It's just being proactive in that management and putting the people in place that have the skills that can pick up the phone and dial and talk to customers,
Well, and I'm seeing it just as I go through chat here. I mean, that's really, it's like, okay, that's the $1 million question. Is we're used to being able to be face to face. Now we've had to pivot to be able to be, is it all inside sales? I mean, I had a question I got a couple of months ago that said, is everybody. I like the word you used of hybrid, Bill, because that's really, there's inside sales professionals are wired to do inside sales. They don't feel chained to a desk. They love it. They thrive on being over the phone. Like that's what an inside salesperson is wired to do. Whereas for the field, this is a fish out of water. It's almost like the difference of, I didn't sign up for this, but this is the environment that we're in. And Patty, kind of like you had said, where you're really having to learn new skills and do things differently. I'm going to share something really quick just to see, and Allison, I'm going to take the screen real quick so you'll see a little shift here. But a quick survey that I find is really interesting. Let me just get the right view for everybody. This was a virtual selling survey from 2020, so just last year. And so a couple of things. It says less than 2% of respondents on this survey believe that the changes they've seen in 2020 are going to be temporary. So, and I'm even seeing companies that are, some of the more forward-thinking, even manufacturers that are coming out with a sales model that says post-COVID, like already post-COVID, here's how we're going to market. The other one that came through was that 44% of organizations stated they had effectively adapted their sales process to align with how buyers want to buy in a COVID world. People are almost have come to appreciate the efficiency of virtual meetings. Not to say, and there are some areas that it's good old boy, come on in, mask, no mask, whichever. So, I mean, your area and your market. But this survey says that, hey, those that are learning to, it's almost like meet your customer the way they want to meet, not necessarily the way you want to meet. And so have a tool of all kinds of things that you can do. So let's expand more on that for a minute in terms of just the upskilling of the sales organization to meet the new demands that we have in today's environment. So Myers, what about for you? And what have you guys done to just upskill, pivot from a selling standpoint, just new skills that have been needed to help your sales team?
It's I guess that one's kind of split depending on the sales rep. We have very young teams, so we're very fortunate in some ways, but it's also unfortunate in others. We have a young team who telemarketing, Zoom calls, all things internet, IT, and tech makes sense. Relationships with millennials, and I'm a millennial, relationships are a little tougher to teach. That customer service doesn't just come naturally for young folks as well as it does for people who have run a bread route for 30, 40 years and really have taken care of every need that customer has. So we probably err on the side of too young. And so some of the skills we're actually having to coach is, no, you've got to keep taking care of these customers. So we may be a little bit different than a lot of dealers in that sense, because a lot of people are like, oh, this is how you turn your camera on. We've had those conversations, but a lot of it is, this is how you take care of a customer. And that's probably been different. But the biggest thing I would say for us in hiring and looking for these team members has probably been a cultural fit has become a much more important element. And we've always just kind of hired who's capable of selling, who knows this market, who has relationships. Like, look for a skill set rather than a personality set. And each of our markets is a little bit different in the cultural in the culture of that market. And I'm sure there are dealers on the call who can relate to that, especially if you've ever acquired another dealer. There's typically a different culture in that market or that branch than there is in your other branches, and that culture takes a while to all mesh back together. So we have been really trying to hire based on core values. It's been not so much, I guess, about skill training. I mean, we put out a white paper that said, these are your rules. Please, you have to keep your camera on during a call, no background noise, do this, that, and the other. Please put your dogs up if you're at your house. Like those simple things, like please wear pants. Other than that,
basics.
A lot of it's been more of, we're all now having to spend a lot more time together. whether that's in the office doing these outbound sales calls from your desk or whatever it is. And the bigger question we've got is, are you going to fit with our team? You know, are you the right kind of person who's going to mesh well with everyone else here at Herald, especially in that market? So I don't know if that really answers the question. It's been less skills for us and more of how do you work and integrate in with the rest of the team around you?
Equally important. I mean, we've all interacted with someone that can be highly talented, but is negative or just pulls other or just cultural fit. Because that way we move together as a team. So that's equally relevant. Sorry. Let me expand on that though for a second, because we had a chat question. Are people splitting inbound and outbound? I want to go back to the upskilling because that's a very important comment. And Patty, I want to ask you to weigh in a minute on what you're doing with video. But the question, Jeff, I see you're asking is, are people splitting inbound and outbound sales? And I think you're asking, are we having an inside sales team and an outside sales team, two different? Let me just open that up. Bill, I see you shaking your head. Can you weigh in there?
Yeah, so you answered it, Marissa. So we're splitting it. We have inside and outside. So let me make clear that there is still, in our company, in our market, there's still a really high need for an outside sales rep. Their outside reps provide, you know, value of that face-to-face to that customer. So we still need that, especially in our area. But from an inside sales perspective, when we have an account come in that goes to our website and is looking for, you know, let's just say PPE, because that's what everybody's looking for. They come in, they set up an account, they get online. That information goes to a manager, and then that manager looks at the size of the company and then decides if this is going to go to an outside rep or an inside rep. Okay. If it's a smaller company, medium size, it would go to an inside, and vice versa. If it's larger, it goes to an outside. So, so yes, the answer is we are splitting them up.
Okay. And Myers, you kind of read something maybe a little bit different in the question. What would be your perspective?
I just wanted to clarify what he was asking.
Yeah.
Jeff asked, are people splitting inbound/outbound inside sales? So I read that to say, are we splitting the inbound versus outbound volume within our inside sales team? I'm not sure if that's how he meant that or not, but so I guess I'd put that back to Bill. How the difference in customer service versus inside sales, I think, is what a lot of people are dealing with.
If it's not a customer, then it's going to inside sales, and they manage that account. If obviously if it is a customer, then it's going to go to customer service. But the ones that are coming into the, you know, through the phone system typically go to inside sales when they're seeking, you know, some type of product. It just helps with the selling process, and you don't change hands multiple times throughout a company where you've got, you know, maybe an operator to customer service, and then customer service says, well, I need to get you over to inside sales. It's just routed to inside sales. So that helps us shorten the duration of time, and you know, that the potential customer will be on the phone, and then it helps us, you know, get their questions answered as fast as possible. And if it's an inside sales rep, they're going to be able to speak more directly to the product that they need. So.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm just going to comment on Jeff's, and Jeff, I see you sent that just to panelists. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to share on this. So you found it hard to motivate people to make outbound calls when they're constantly taking inbound / working sales opportunities. And that's the constant, you know, juggling of the amount of time I'm spending being proactive versus the amount of time I'm spending reactive. And it's almost some of it's time management, some of it's comp, some of it's, there's a lot of different directions that can go. So hopefully that helped us weigh in a little bit on what you were having to say there. And go ahead, Myers. And
we, to Jeff's point, we had to split it. We did have to split it. So our inside sales team, when we've had inside sales reps, and we don't currently have anyone that's truly a pure inside sales rep, but when we have had to either have inside account managers or inside hunters almost. And if it's an account that's buying, because to Jeff's point, if you've got people dialing back in and being transferred to the inside sales team, it can mess up their numbers if they're saying, well, I'm trying to hit X number of calls a day or hit X number of sales a day or whatever it is, but I keep dealing with back orders. So we had to push to our customer service team being assigned accounts from a not just placing orders, but really managing those accounts completely. Even outbound calling them, but calling them as their account manager, not a customer, if that makes sense. So we push the accounts to customer service, and then outbound would be more hunting, new account development.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. We've got a couple other topics in the lineup, seeing over chat. So just recognize if you've sent a note of, hey, can you cover this? We're not ignoring you. We're going to come to that. And Chip, I saw you nodding your head. Anything else you would weigh in on that conversation around what Myers and Bill were just talking about?
Yeah, I do believe that you need two types of organizations. One that will take the inbound questions, and you need the hunters that are going to continue to make the calls and find new opportunities. We found that during the pandemic, we sold a lot of accounts we never sold before, and the sales staff that is outside doesn't have the time to go after them. So the inside staff is going after the people that bought product, especially the PPE products from us, to go forward and sell more products to them. I feel that we were there when they needed that type of product. We should be able to get more business. So that's why we started developing an inside hunting team, is what I would call it. Then the ones that receive the calls, hey, how do I look up this particular back pin, and whatever questions I have. So I think you do need the two inside type differential organizations.
Well, and they also have the bandwidth to be able to make those calls and to focus, and just to be able to keep it. I mean, it really boils down to activity times efficiency equals results. So we have a lot of sales professionals that they have a big, huge E because they've been doing this forever. So it's like efficiency is high, but activity is this little tiny amount. And so that's somehow that has to balance. We have to have enough activity, but also some efficiency. So sometimes that can be through a retraining, upskilling, sometimes inside sales, but whatever the solution is, activity has to be there. Let me, and I'm going to come back to hiring. I'm seeing a couple other things over chat, but Patty, I'd love to pull you back in on something that you're doing differently. And you're on this call from a sales professional perspective. So a little bit different. This is more of a strategic call, but it's important for us to hear from you as a salesperson. And you were talking with us last time, and even a few minutes ago, about use of video and video emails. Tell us a little bit about that. I have a couple of stats to share, but we want to hear from you first.
Okay, so what I did is just to develop myself in a personal basis, because who knows how long we're not going to be able to walk into a company. So I took a class on video marketing, and it was a free class. So it was actually it was nice, but it actually teaches you how to send an email video to a prospect. And it has to be very short, so you get their attention, and you can actually add other additional information on the email too. But it's challenging because you have just, how long will people really listen to your video? 15 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. So to practice, because you really have to practice, because you have to make sure your body language is okay. You pronounce all your words correctly, your eye contact, your hair is done, you look professional. And it was, I'm actually really, I practice all the time, even prior to here, because I was all dressed up today. I thought, I'm going to, instead of being my hair in a ponytail, I'm going to do some of these videos. And starting really even this next week is I'm really going to start sending them out, because I feel like I have it down now. And you can send the same one over, to all different kind of prospects. So it's that I think is valuable at this point right now, to get something out differently than just making phone calls and sending emails. Is how do you do something different?
Completely. And so just to weigh in on that for everyone, and by the way, after this, there's a couple of documents that are going to be available to you, and Allison and Tanya will weigh in on that. There's something I'm going to call tips and tricks for sending videos that we've sent. as well as there's a virtual selling quiz. So you can assess, hey, how are you on virtual meetings? And so those are a couple of things available to you. But Patty, to weigh in on what you're talking about, here's the impact. I just wanted to share this, and I grabbed a couple of stats for everyone, is the impact of videos. So we're not talking Zoom meetings and all of this stuff. We're talking about video emails. Let me just touch on this real quick. On average, huge uptick in response. So 40% higher open rate, click through, reply rate. I'll take a 2 times reply rate. I'm a salesperson too, much less 3 times. And so just to give you a quick visual, this is what it looks like. And Patty, you use Vidyard, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so everybody, this is if you're not using it, definitely worthwhile to be able to look into it. It's there's Vidyard, there's Boom Boom, there's Videolicious, there's lots of different tools. Vidyard happens to be one I use. That's what Patty uses. But you can actually send a video email. It's free. You can set up a personal account for your sales organization. But the approach is, and just looking back at chat, it's how do we do things differently? How do we step out of our comfort zones and be different to get through, especially if they're not allowing visitors? And it looks like this. If I were to send an email, and these were 2 gentlemen I was working to get my foot in the door with, it was actually 2. And so you send but in the body of the email, you'll see I'm holding a sign that says, hi, Alex and Pablo. And sometimes you can just use a little whiteboard, write it on there, or you can get fancier with a letterboard or whatever you want to do. But so when I was referring to the open rate, the click through, the return rate, this works really, really well. But I'll just give a caveat to that is it's not pull out your most dangerous weapon first, pick up the phone first. Encourage your sales team to use the phone first. They've received 2 voicemails. Now they get a video. And that is what increases that open rate. So food for thought, just another tool to be able to think about doing things different in today's sales environment. Anybody, anything else on that on our panel or questions over chat before I shift past video, anything like that? Let me just pause for a second. Okay, so let's jump over to hiring and just shift topics here for a second. And Allison, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you want to go back to, I just had a couple of those that I wanted to share. But in terms of hiring, tips on hiring, and let me look back, I saw a few different questions around how do you hire and what is the profile? And then a couple of others, what are tips for hiring in today's market was a private chat I received. So any of our panelists, just pop up a hand or jump in there.
Oh, I find it's a lot easier now to hire salespeople because they all been either furloughed or let go from their organizations. And there's quite a few of them in our area now, and I'm in the Chicago, Indiana area, that are looking for new opportunities. So we've been very successful in that respect. And where do we find them? Well, mostly in Indeed is where we're searching out for them. And some of them, because they know about the fact that we are looking, they reach out to us. But I feel that because of the pandemic, we have found a lot more qualified salespeople than we have in the past.
That's fantastic. Because good quality people, I remember I was talking to a new inside salesperson the other day, and she was a flight attendant and just a gem, just such a natural talent that, but I mean, naturally travel industry's gotten hit. So some really, really quality. Anybody else can weigh in on that, hiring, what you're finding. Myers, what have you seen?
I would just say if you're jumping into hiring inside sales reps, I don't know if it's reach out to Marissa, reach out to Mike Gentili, Charles Foreman. I mean, anyone else at ISG, get a hold of a couple of dealerships who do it and do it well, and really pick the brains of those principals and say, how are you hiring? Because then the next question is, how do you pay them? The next question is, what are your scripts? The next, what should we expect? I mean, it's not just, I mean, you go hire an inside sales rep and boom, be off to the races. There are dealerships who put a lot of thought. We are not necessarily one of them. We've done inside sales. It hasn't necessarily been our, it's not our go-to-market strategy, but there are a lot of dealerships who are remarkably successful with it. I would go to Marissa or someone else, find a dealership to call, and then ask those same questions. Where do you find, I mean, because the the profile is completely different of who you're looking for. That would be my take, is find a couple of people who know what they're doing and call them.
Myers, while you're talking about that, I want to go back to something that kind of bring it into hiring. So you had mentioned earlier how you're looking for culturally, is it a fit? Is there any tips of how you're vetting that out in the hiring process before they're part of your organization? What can you share there?
So we really look at first our core values, less than and I know everybody's got their core values, but we take our core values of who we are and who we look for in our team members, and we say, how well do you check these boxes? And I mean, one of our core values is to be fiercely competitive winners. So if we don't get a heavy competitive kind of spirit on an interview from an applicant, it's just not going to work. We want hungry people who want to go fight in the marketplace. So we've got a bunch of core values. I'm sure everybody does, but that's where we start. And then it's kind of just, do you seem like you're similar to the people in this market? There's a culture in every branch or every market, and it's just, are you going to fit with that? But it starts with core values. Do you fit with our overall team and who we're trying to be and where we're trying to go? And then, are you somebody who could relay this vision out to our customers?
Excellent. Yeah, something like a competitive spirit. Are we seeing that? Anything we can assess prior to? That's the key. So anything else, Bill? Do you have?
And just
I'm sorry, Myers. I apologize.
So just, the other thing on that is just that makes it a lot easier to do interview questions. You're not asking, what is your greatest weakness? Well, I'm just a perfectionist. You know, I mean, I just work too hard. It's a lot easier to ask questions about, tell me about a time, or tell me about your competition. What teams have you competed on? Like those questions, core values, are easier to measure than, tell me, your typical interview questions of, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, the standard weakness, strength, etc. Yeah, I have there's a recruiter friend of mine that he's hired, is really sought after athletes, and those that, hey, if you can wake at 5 a.m. and knock out 5 miles and then be at work by 8, there's just something that you're wired to do. Like you're just wired for that competitive spirit, whether it's that or something, but there's something where that's almost like in your blood, is that competitive nature, and things that can come out not with a scripted interview question. Bill, I know you guys, you've grown quite a bit even this past year. So I know you have input to weigh in.
So we, from an inside sales perspective, when we're looking for that type of caliber, we were really lucky. One of our inside sales reps, I tasked him, I said, who do you know that's like you that would thrive in this environment? And we put it on a lot of our outside reps too, when we're looking for, a new position, if you will. Who do you know that's like you, that would enjoy doing this, that you would enjoy working with, that would be a good fit for our team? So, we pushed a lot of that internally. We had some success with that, but from an outside perspective, I would agree with, what Meyer said and also what Chip said. It takes a special individual to do that, and you have to find that person, because we have brought in somebody that, they sat behind a desk and started making phone calls, and their productivity just went down in the dumps, and it was because they weren't cut out for it. And we just couldn't identify that ahead of time. So I think, multiple interviews, and not just the perspective of the hiring manager, perspective of, interviewing with another rep, interviewing with somebody else, throughout the company, that you can get another perspective on, so that, hey, this person is going to sit there and make, 75 calls a day, and be able to perform and hit metrics.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of a dealer I worked with for a long time that we would do a shadow process where they shadow, and you probably do something like that, where they would sit next to them and shadow and listen. And there was like a shadow form of, what do you pick up on? But a lot of times your current employees have just a different set of glasses than you have, and they're able to pick up on things. And even just, hey, they were on their phone, or they were paying attention, or they were, pulled right in. I mean, we might be able to do the pull in line splitter true shit, but you can do virtual version of that. But your current employees can be great feedback. on candidates. So I love how you mentioned that. Anything else that you would just add to that? And the applicant and the rep side by side. Yeah, and maybe even side by side virtually. Patty, yes, I'm sorry. I need like multiple eyes and for virtual, and I don't have enough of them. So yes, go ahead.
One thing that we did, this is like years ago, I worked for a different dealership and I was a sales manager at that time, is that we had like 6 people that we were interested in. I sent them out a script, like a scenario. They had to come in and actually sell me. I gave them the whole scenario, like, like who I was, like the company I was looking for binders, like 60 binders and copy paper. And I gave them a whole scenario. Then they had to come in. They came in every half hour, came to my office, introduced myself, and they had a role play. I didn't care if I asked them how much copy paper is, if they said $100 or $10. I didn't care about pricing because I knew they might not know that, but was how they could dig. And I had like one person that would say, well, if you're getting 60 binders, what else are you putting in those? So he actually took it to different steps. So he was very successful. So we role played. It was everyone that we ended up hiring 4 out of 6 said that was the most stressful thing they ever did in an interview. But it really showed me how they could work under pressure, because you're the sales manager, they would sell you. And I thought that was, I would always do that.
Yeah, well, and it's the put it in the scenario, not the standard scripted interview questions. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that experience, Patty. Brett, we see your question on, and I have a couple of a planned one, but you're more important. If something comes in via chat, we'll default to your question. And so that's, how critical has organized marketing integrated with inside sales been successful? I can't read, for success with your inside sales force. And there may be a panelist that can weigh in on that. I'll just share a little bit of context from my standpoint. I think those have to mesh and marry, because I mean, and this isn't just about inside sales, hybrid, outside, we need it all. But having what is our messaging, and even I'm really big on the cheat sheets, quick job aids. What is the key things that we do different? If you're hiring someone, being able to share with them, here is what we believe in to our core. This is what makes us better, different. Here's 3 success stories. That'd be my one tip for any new hire coming on, is they should be able to share a client success story. Because that's the problem. When you're new, you don't have any stories. You need to go get you some stories, but you don't have those stories yet. And so being able to join at the hip with someone else that has some stories to tell is really important. And marketing can be a great resource to be able to help with what are our stories of how have we made people say, wow, and how have we captured that and documented it? Is there anybody else on our panel to be able to weigh into marketing and inside sales specifically?
I think you said that really well, Marissa. So we do have an organized marketing plan that our inside reps stick to. And it almost kind of mirrors our outside as well. We have PDFs, we have testimonies, we have who we are, these are all core values. From an inside sales perspective, when they touch that customer and they get information, they really want to capture that email address, and they can send that information to that customer so that they have it in front of them so they can pull it up. And a lot of times what we really push is for that inside sales rep, while they're on the phone with that potential customer, is to say, hey, can I get your email address? And if you're in front of your computer, I can shoot you some information. Let's pull it up and walk through it together. And that really helps paint a picture for the customer to see who we are, what we do, all the different categories that we can supply, and help us in that manner. So I think it is very critical to have that for a successful inside sales force.
Excellent. Yeah, to be able to have that marry together. And I know we're talking about inside sales a lot here, but just we all on this call fully recognize it's everything. I mean, if I'm going to refer to a golf, it's in my bag is I've got a driver and a putter, and maybe I never use my sand wedge, but now all of a sudden it's 2021 and that's video emails is using the sand wedge. And so it's a matter of I need to have a mix of tools strategically in my bag for selling. It's not a one size fits all. It's not just about inside or video or outside. You know, Bill, to your point, hey, our market, we need to be going out and meeting with people. And there could be others like that too. It's a matter of do it all, have it all. It's a mix of different things because different people want to meet, different people don't. We got different generations. So it's being able to have a mix of different ways. Let's round out with just, you know, kind of a final question, if you will, of just what are one or two other things that if you had to say, hey, here's one tip for the year for our panelists, and I just say, let's keep this tight because I want to make sure we keep ourselves on schedule as well. But as you've seen chats coming in, maybe something we haven't had a time to get to, just one other tip you have for the other dealers that are listening into our conversation. So anybody want to go first? I don't want to totally put you on the spot.
Well, I think that what's been successful for us is that we really boosted up our social media on Facebook and LinkedIn. We've sent a lot of, and we do a lot more blasting of deals and specials on products that we have. So that's increased a lot of our revenue by using the social media aspect. I think more and more people are looking at that stuff because they're sitting at home with nothing to do.
Yeah. Yes. And they're on social feeds more. So great. Excellent. And we don't have to go in single file and say Bill and Patty and Myers. Just if any of the four of you have just that one extra tip, what would you add?
I would say that to actually telemarket, to go after new business with, in Cleveland at least, Staples, W. Mason, which is like more dominant in this area, they're falling through the cracks. They've laid off numerous people. They're not, you know, people I've talked to are not getting deliveries. Back orders are tremendous and they don't even, no one's communicating with them. Is, you know, to go after new business. This is our time.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with Patty. I think that now it couldn't be a better time for independent dealers to really capture new business. And I think it's very important. You know, my tip would be make sure you have a process for tracking that new business. Make sure you're utilizing a CRM tool. Make sure within that CRM tool, you're able to track those potential customers through a cycle from just a prospect to an actual purchasing customer. That helps you really, you know, bring the wagons back around, if you will, and all the opportunity that you've uncovered in 2020 or beginning of 2021, you're able to see it and then go after it. So I think it's very important to have a process.
Excellent. And with your CRM that it marries in there. So one last thing, and if Myers, if you have anything else just in a second, but I would just ask everybody that's on the line, we love to be able to hear, hey, what was a key takeaway? What was something, and it's helpful for other dealers to be able to see. So if there was one nugget that, hey, this got me to think, this was intriguing, this conversation, we'd love to see that over chat. What was your one takeaway out of our discussion today? And while those are coming in, Myers, any final thoughts of what would your tip be?
Well, Patty saying hers kind of made me think a slogan we use a lot as we quote Count of Monte Cristo, neglect becomes our ally. And that's an excellent offensive slogan to go after these accounts that certainly have been neglected, but also it's kind of a defensive warning for us as well. Where are we neglecting, and who is finding our neglect to be their ally today is certainly something that we're concerned about a little bit. But our big messaging and goal for this year is kind of twofold. One is how quickly can we communicate change to a customer? And that was something that happened last year very quickly was, goodness, we have a possible container of gloves. Can we find a home? And it's gone, you know? And so how quickly can we get a message or communicate change to the customer, and would be one piece. And then how structured, to the question about marketing for inside sales, how much does planning and structuring our sales organization then push to marketing to inside sales? And so I'd almost take that a step back and say, we're not good at it. I wish we were better, but we are planning right now our April blitz, you know, and a month ago, we planned our March blitz. So we have, this is what we will be pushing. Our market managers are compensated by hitting goals in that blitz, but it's got to be communicated months in advance to those people, and so that there's no surprises of, oh gosh, here's what we're doing today. And so those would be my couple of kind of takeaways would be, one, who are we neglecting and who's being neglected in the market? And then how are we organizing our sales team around communicating the same message to everybody would be our big things.
And a common message. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I'll leave everybody with one just last thought. I heard this analogy the other day and it really stood out to me. And then Allison, I'm going to turn this back over to you and Tanya. But it was an analogy of, we can all picture ourselves back in the day when you were traveling, and picture yourself where all of a sudden you're walking up to an escalator and the escalator is going up. Or actually it's coming down. Let me correct that. So you got a down escalator and there's nothing in sight to be able to get on and up. You got to catch your flight on time. We have to run up that escalator that's going down. And if you go up there and you're just stand still, well, all of a sudden it goes right back down. That's really where we're at right now, is it's an escalator that's going down. And if we're just standing still and not doing anything, then that's not going to help us. So it is literally a running up a down escalator. Grab on new ideas, new tactics. Myers, as you had said, who's good at this in our business? Let me share with another dealer, learn from them, and really be running, because that's what it takes. And it's not a temporary thing. And it's something that we can all learn from, myself included, just as we've grown this year. So thank you so much for the chats and everything. Allison, let me turn that back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. I just wanted to go over a couple other things right before we decide to end the call. We do have some additional upcoming events that are part of this Discover Your Next Move initiative. So I ask any attendees on the call to save the date for some of these upcoming events and be looking for additional events on top of these coming up. Looking your emails, we'll have the registration links for all these, but just to name a few that are coming up in the next couple weeks. We have Mastering the Interview webinar, helping you make better choices, decisions, be more prepared when it comes to hiring. Inside Sales 101 Bootcamp, Fall in Love with LinkedIn, and another town hall about keeping your customers engaged on your website. So save the date and look for emails with the registration information for all of those. Today's been a really great and productive call. I can't thank all of our ISG member panelists enough. All of them have been kind enough to provide their contact information if you don't already have it, and welcome any of you reaching out to them to ask them additional questions, feedback, idea sharing, you name it. So their information is here. And again, this webinar it has been recorded, so this will go out in case you don't have any of their email addresses, and you'll be able to catch them there as well. And last but certainly not least, Marissa, can't thank you enough for doing such a wonderful job moderating this panel today. I think this was invaluable. I've seen some really great conversation happening in the chat, and I think that this conversation can continue and should continue between our members as we continue into 2021 and whatever happens next regarding this pandemic. So again, can't thank you enough. On here you see Marissa and her team. She also would love to hear from any of you if you have any questions, want to continue the conversation. In addition to the resources that she mentioned will be available on our website, and I will put that out in a follow-up email with the recording to this town hall. These people are all also a resource as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's call, unless you have anything else to add, Marissa.
I don't. Thank you so much, everybody. And it was good to be able to engage with you, at least virtually today. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.